Hi, my name is Dr. Steve Runge, and I had a user on the High Definition Bible Study group ask me a good question about where do I start with the discourse resources. So what I wanted to do was just give a basic overview and talk about some of the concepts that are in there. So first of all, especially for those of you who really only know about the High Definition New Testament, the High Definition New Testament is a Greek analysis, so it's based on the Nestle-Aland 27th edition Greek text, but it's overlaid on the ESV text. So what this means then is that where the ESV translators have made a decision to clarify things or to provide extra detail that's not in Greek, or to go a different direction, that can make it somewhat confusing. But the idea behind these resources is to mark up what I felt were the easiest to understand and the most useful Bible study tools and devices from Greek grammar that could help enhance your Bible study, teaching, and preaching. So you'll notice that there's a basic block indent outline. So where you see indentation, what that means is that there's some kind of subordination or dependency. So for instance, you have a verb of speaking here in verse 19, and then it's indented. That's because all of this that follows that's indented one level is the speech. You can see the quotation marks there in the English. But then you'll also find things like complex. And so if you just hover in the electronic resource, you'll get a pop-up glossary that comes with both the HDNT and the Lexham Discourse Greek New Testament to give you a description of things. So a complex clause is when you have one or more dependent clauses that precede the main clause. So notice that this is indented two levels. This is the subpoint that precedes the main clause, where this is actually the main clause right here. For as God raises the dead and gives them life. So you've got two different basis of comparisons, so also the Son gives life to whom he will. So this is the main thought of this verse, but you've got two subordinate clauses. And so the goal of this outline is to help you understand the structure. Now let's take a look at some of the things like the near-far distinction was what the question was about. You notice it says in verse 19, for whatever the Father does, that the Son does likewise. So when a writer wants to have two different items that potentially it may confuse you over which is the more important of the two, they can make a near-far distinction where the near one, which is generally translated as this, is the one that's more central, or the one that's translated that is the one that's less central. But if this is where the question, notice it says near distinction, even though that is used, where on the far distinction, it says it's translated as the Father. So if we go over to Greek, and I'm not saying Greek is superior and you have to understand everything, but the point is working with the Lexham Discourse Greek New Testament can actually be a help, because the interlinear line that I have turned on here, all you have to do is go up and click on this box, and you can control what appears or doesn't appear. So I just have the literal gloss on, but notice that it's a pretty readable line. For whatever that one does, these things also the Son likewise does. So that one is referring to the Father, and it's potentially confusing because, and that's why the ESV has provided it. It clarifies down in verse 20, the Father loves the Son, but Jesus, it says that the primary interest is not in the Father. It doesn't mean he's unimportant, but Jesus' main point here is about the things that he sees the Father doing. And that's why you have these things, or tauta. Even if you can't pronounce the Greek, you can still see the glosses underneath will maintain the precision that just isn't possible in ESV to maintain readability. So in terms of where do I start? Each of these resources come with their own introduction. So if I can click on this panel and show you the table of contents. This provides a basic introduction, introducing basic principles like choice implying meaning, how prominence comes about, how contrast comes about, and then the important distinction is semantic meaning versus pragmatic effect. And then I go through the forward-pointing devices, and then emphasis, which is a bit of it deals with word order or information structure analysis. But this introduction is about 25 pages, I think, 26 pages if you were to print it off as a Word document. Some of the Greek devices have been combined. If we were to look at repetition involves tailhead linkage and redundant quotative frames for those of you who are used to the Greek. So we've consolidated some of the devices in English to make it easier. So if you want more precision, more detail, the Greek database is the one to go, even if you don't have a lot of Greek. And the thing is, the Greek database is sold. If you buy the Greek database, it comes with the HDNT. So if you've already bought the HDNT, the Logos dynamic pricing will give you a discount toward the Greek database. But each of them come with their own introduction. So again, you can see all the different devices. So word order analysis, and notice that's far bigger than just having the description of emphasis. Thematic highlighting. So each of them come with a introduction, and then they also come with a glossary. So you can just hover over them, and the glossary kind of works. I mean, it doesn't work as well in a mobile environment, but you can tap on it with a single tap rather than holding down, and that will open it up. So let's say you're looking at the near distinction or a far distinction. You say, gosh, I want to get to know this better. I can read the best way to do that is read the introduction first, go down to the near far distinction. You can read the section about that. It gives you a general introduction, the explanation, and then 3 or 4 examples. In the HDNT, it gives you actually questions to ask at the end. So if we come down to the near distinction, you'll get a definition, and then at the end of that section, you'll have some questions to focus on in terms of applying it. But the best way to get to know something is to go into your resource, just right click on one of on the device you're interested in, come down to where it is. So in this case, it's the near far distinction, and then say search this resource. And what that will do then is pull up all of the instances. And let's say you're studying in a book like Romans. If I'm teaching in Romans, I can narrow down the scope. So instead of looking at all passages, I'm just looking at the ones in the book I'm interested in. And what this does is, going through more data like this, it helps you build your own grammar. Instead of reading my explanation and my grammatical description, you can see data and build your own understanding based on the patterns you see. Well, now let's take a look at some other resources. First of all, let me say I'd encourage you to join this group. If this is a Faith Life group centered around the high definition resources. So all you need to do is just go to faithlife.com/high-def, and you'll see, you'll be able to look at joining the group. There's some good discussions that have started. If you're interested in some of the resources, like I said, if you've got the high definition New Testament, then I'd encourage looking at the Lexham Discourse Greek New Testament if you're interested in getting at more detail. The introduction to the LDGNT is about 75 pages instead of the 24 pages. There is also a 9-volume bundle that has the Greek and English. It comes with the Greek discourse grammar. So for those of you who have had Greek, this would basically be like an intermediate discourse grammar, or an intermediate grammar. And then it also comes with the Philippians high definition commentary. So what that is a a resource that helps you see what this looks like in the pulpit. We've also just put up on Prepub 2 mobile ed courses that I filmed. The first one goes through the Lexham Discourse, or goes through the discourse grammar of the Greek New Testament as a textbook, and then there's an exposition of the book of Philippians. So I believe it's about 14 hours worth of content. Another resource that's available is basically that we have Old Testament resources that are comparable to the Greek ones, that are applying the same framework and identifying the same devices, though some of them occur less frequently in Hebrew than they do in Greek. But there's just as you have the Greek database that comes with introduction and glossary, and you have the English with the introduction and glossary, you have a Hebrew database with introduction and glossary, and then the ESV version, the HDOT, High Definition Old Testament, with introduction and glossary. So this should give you a general overview of how these devices work together. If you've got questions, I'd encourage you to stop by the High Def Bible Study group at faithlife.com/high def, and answer any questions, or I'd be happy to answer questions there. You're also going to find answers to questions from other people. You're going to find videos I've done, but also you're going to find like-minded people who are interested in getting more out of these resources, just like you are.